Welcome back to the Minnesota Sports Facebook page. Welcome to another edition of Ski-U-Mah Weekly presented by the Minnesota Lottery. I'm Justin Gard from KFAN Radio and the Gopher Radio Network. And Mo Linguist is 1-0 in this chair, but we replaced him with the head man again this week, the head coach, PJ
I can leave
Fleck.
if you want me
Maybe
to.
we'll get Mo in for the second
Mo.
segment. Yeah, we'll get Mo. Mo, no, we're going to ask you to stay because there's a lot to discuss. And a reminder, this show is for you out there watching online right now. We'd love to get some questions and comments here in a couple of minutes. Just drop them in the comments section. I'll ask a couple. We'll get to yours, and we'll be on our way. But a lot of fun, I would imagine, to review what happened Saturday at TCF Bank Stadium, a big win against Nebraska. What stood out when you went back?
Well, I think the big thing was we were consistent and we executed, right? We played at a very high level. Those are the things we've missed all year in terms of our losses. We weren't consistent. We didn't execute at a high level. What you saw is the future of what Gopher Football is going to look like, right? We need to be more consistent. We need to execute better. We need to continue to develop in the weight room. We've got to be able to bring this young football team along. But again, we're showing bits and pieces of what it's going to look like in the future. But hopefully this is something that catches on. And you know, I give Coach Shiraka a lot of credit for keeping that game plan really tight. Coach Smith doing the same thing on defense. We've got a lot of new players, even throughout the whole season, that have gotten opportunities. And I think you start to see how a quarterback can really work in our system once we find the right guy and once we find him doing all the right things. So again, it was one of those nights. It was really special that everybody got to share that with us. It was a good win for the Gophers.
A lot of good things to talk about offensively. Demery sets a record for quarterback rushing. Rodney Smith is a top 10 all-purpose guy. Tons of great performances. But what I kind of like, just from my vantage point, is you guys seemed very aggressive. 4th and 1, it didn't seem like there was any hesitation. You know, you did win a couple of times. 3rd and 1, you're running the option. Very diversified and very aggressive offensively. Was that always going to be the plan?
Well, yeah, we have to be. You know, I will always be that way in terms of 4th and 1 if I believe in those guys. You know, and it just depends on where we are in the field. But we want to go win that football game. We wanted to attack and go get it, and we knew that we have to be able to create doubt in their mind early, right? And that's why I think the 4th and 1 stop early is probably the biggest play we had all game that nobody really talks about as much.
Right.
They want to talk about the Demery, they want to talk about offense or the runs or the points. That 4th down stop created everything. 14-7, we stop them. We get a 70-yard touchdown after that with Demery, 20-7. Now we've immediately created that doubt in that opponent, that 4 and 5 opponent, just like us. It was going to go one way or another. And we created that doubt first, and that's what we wanted to be able to do. And then we had 2 other defensive 4th down stops that were absolutely critical. So when you're executing on 3rd and 4th down, which we were, they were 5 and 9 on 3rd down. We were 1 and 1 on 4th down. But then all of a sudden they were 7 of 20
right.
on 3rd and 4th down combined. Now you're sitting there thinking you have a really good chance to win.
You mentioned the 4 and 5. Both teams were going 4 and 5, and you're right. You can take that a number of different ways. What was the key for you guys to not let the Michigan game beat you twice, so to speak? I know you're always forward thinking and
yeah, I think that's media talk at times, like letting it beat you twice. I mean that happens a lot, and it doesn't happen a lot, you know. So I think those are things you really have to take into consideration of what these guys are going to hear outside of our culture. And so for us, it's about changing our best, getting better. We got better from last week. And we got better from last week, and we want to do the same thing this week. But I was really proud of their response. That's what it shows. What's the character of your football team?
Right. Response
when you get whooped like you did at Michigan. And there was no sugarcoating about it. We got whooped when we came back and had one of the best performances we've had all year.
We'll talk about Northwestern here in a minute, but let's get to the Facebook questions because they have queued up. This is a follow-up from a couple of weeks ago, Coach Fleck. Kimberly with the band. She asked you about Hamilton. Jason Aldean a couple of weeks ago wants to know if you heard the Hamilton My Shot at the game, and do you have any other suggestions as moving forward with one more home game to go?
I wish I heard it. I did not hear it. Now I'm regretting not being able to listen to it, but I do have earphones on. I do have my headset on, you know, so that's a little bit more difficult when you're listening and you're involved in the game. I wish I did, but if you could please send me, you know,
get the MP3,
MP3, or email that to me. I would love to hear it, or Facebook me or whatever. Just make sure I get a chance to hear it because I would love to do that. So. And
at any given point, when they walk by your office, if you're on the street here on 15th, there's Hamilton. You can probably hear it from the football building, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Given that you're listening to that quite a bit.
Absolutely.
So we'll get that. We'll take that under advisement, as we like to say. George wants to talk about the run defense. Very solid throughout the game. Anything to comment on to focus on the pass defense for Northwestern? Maybe take both of those. Stopping the run against Nebraska, always important, but also now you're dealing with a pretty good quarterback and good receivers for Northwestern.
Yeah, you're also dealing with one of the best running backs in Northwestern history, right? So you're talking about they are very balanced, and that's what you want to become. They've had the same system for over a decade now with Mick McCall running their offense. I know that system. I know those guys very well. They're very balanced. That's what makes them deadly. Their wideouts are catching passes on the outside, but you still got to be able to stop the run, which one of the best running backs in the entire country is in their backfield. Plus, their quarterback can flat out run too. So, and playing at a high level. They've won 5 straight. They got a lot of confidence. They've taken a lot of games into overtime. They win close games. We have to have a balanced attack. We can't just stop the passing game or they're going to run for 300 yards. So we have to be able to create a lot of diversion. We've got to be able to keep Thorson guessing in the pass game, be able to limit our weaknesses, highlight our strengths with the personnel that we have and that we're playing with, and then do everything we can to stop the run as well. So we've got a major challenge this week.
Jared's question has to do with offense. Obviously, a lot of rushing yards this past week against Nebraska. A couple of guys approaching 200. Through the air, we mentioned Demery's day already, 9 of 15 with a couple of drops in there. How do you continue to evolve that passing game?
The biggest thing for us is we have to develop, right, in the weight room. We have to get faster in our speed and conditioning program, and we have to recruit at a very, very high level. And that's what we're going to do. That's how you increase your pass game. We play 2 quarterbacks that is their first starts in their entire histories, really, right? And our quarterback now, I think, has only had 4 starts. So he's gotten better every single week. We've put on his plate what he can handle, and we scored 54 points. So we are going to continue to do what our players are capable of doing and not just saying, hey, we need to throw the ball because we had 100 and some yards of receiving. We had 409 yards of rushing. We did what we had to do to win the football game. Is there going to be times we're going to have to throw the ball? Yes. And if we're good enough to throw the ball, we'll win. If we're not good enough to throw the ball and we have to rely on it, we won't win. It's simple this year to understand that as we continue to evolve in development and then also recruiting. I think people will start to see a way more balanced offense as we go forward.
You're taking, lastly, a different team from a year ago, literally a different team. You were with Western Michigan a year ago into Ryan Field. Now you're taking the Gophers into Ryan Field. What did you learn that day, or what do you take from that day? What was important that day for you guys to get a victory that you can carry forward here?
Well, I think it was the belief. You know, we had a very experienced team. We had a senior-dominated team. This is the same team when I was my first year at Western Michigan. We went 1-11 with a lot of young players, and then we went all the way through with them, and they failed enough to be successful. That last year, they thought they could beat anybody. And you ask them in the 14th game of the year against Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl, everybody in that locker room felt we were going to beat them.
Right.
And down to the last possession where it came down to. And but again, that's the type of team we had. We've got to grow into that here. But Northwestern is a phenomenal football team, one of the hottest teams in the country right now, not only just in the Big Ten. But we have to be able to get them to believe they can do that. Top 25 opponent. We look forward to the challenge.
We'll let you get back to preparing for it. Thanks as always, Coach.
I appreciate it. Row the boat, Ski-U-Mah. Go Gophers.
That's the head coach, PJ Fleck, here on Ski-U-Mah Weekly. By the way, 11 o'clock kick for Northwestern this Saturday. 11 o'clock kick. Our pregame show, by the way, on the radio starts at 9. We hope you're there for that. When we come back on Ski-U-Mah Weekly, we'll talk to the guy that hired PJ Fleck. Mark Coyle is going to hang out with us in about 90 seconds. Stay with us.
Golden Gopher Athletics wants you to invest in excellence. Embrace a new culture.
If you're a freshman, raise your hand. We're going to find a way to win you a championship by the time we leave. I promise you that.
Show your pride in Minnesota.
Rebound tip, 2 springs, put back, yes! Yes!
Support your state.
Starts into the circle, centers it, drop past the fish, cross ice, and score!
Empower Minnesota greatness. This Give to the Max Day. Support over 750 Golden Gopher student athletes.
The Minnesota Golden Gophers have booked their spot in the national semifinals.
Minnesota is the best in the Big Ten in 2017.
Visit gophersports.com on November 16th to learn more.
Welcome back to Ski-U-Mah Weekly, presented by the Minnesota Lottery. I'm Justin Gard, now joined by the boss. Everybody calls him boss around here. Mark Coyle, the athletic director, is with us. I believe your debut here on the Facebook show. Thanks for taking the time.
It is my debut. Excited to be here.
We just got done with PJ Fleck. We always talk to him every Monday. You're at a lot of practices. You're in the locker room post game. I'm curious just what you've seen from what you thought you were hiring back in January to what you've observed now through 9 games.
Well, first off, obviously, if you remember when we introduced PJ as our head football coach, we talked a lot about his authentic energy. And you've been around him a lot. It's there all the time. He's got such great energy, such great passion. And, I'm just so thankful for how our football students have responded to him, how hard PJ and the staff are working. So we're very excited where our program is and where it's going to go.
A lot of things going on right now. I think 10 teams are currently participating in some form or fashion. As an athletic director, it sounds like a weird question, but how do you keep track of all that? Like, you've got so many different things going on, road meets, home meets, all of those things. Pretty busy time around here, right?
Yeah, it's what I love about being an athletic director. I love being around people who like to compete and compete at a high level. And, our cross-country team on the women's side is making their 12th appearance in the NCAA championship out of 13 years, so they'll be down in Louisville this weekend competing for a championship. Obviously, both basketball programs got started Friday and Saturday. Both played tonight out back east, and so a lot of exciting things going on. But I really love this part of my job. I love watching kids come in here, love how they work academically to do it the right way, how they compete at a high level, so we're just excited to be a part of it.
On the academic part, you guys had some good news last week. It seems like there's been a lot of good academic news the last couple of years, but 92% graduation rate for all of your programs, that's a school record. What do you attribute that to?
It's a culture here. It starts with our students. Our student athletes, when they're recruited to Minnesota, they understand the importance of getting that degree from a world-class institution. I give our head coaches a lot of credit because they bought into that philosophy. And then we have JT Brute and our academic staff who do a phenomenal job. As you know, 92% of our student athletes are graduating. With respect to overall academic performance, we're the highest-rated public school in the country. Right. We have a 3.2 for 4 straight years. So there's lots of positives going on, which is exciting to see as an athletic director.
I'm sure when you were here for your first stint, 12, 14 years ago, you remember that, but even back then there was talk about building new facilities and getting the program up to speed, so to speak, with the rest of the Joneses, if that's what you want to call it. Back when you were here the first time, we didn't have this new football stadium that we now call home, but now that talk is basically done because within 30 to 60 days you're opening up the shiny new complex. There's been work ongoing. What is that? You kind of came into the middle of that in terms of fundraising and everything. What has this whole process been like, and how excited are you to open that building?
It's awesome. The impact it's had on our program is phenomenal. We're so grateful for the donors who supported that project as we continue to fundraise for that and spend a lot of time fundraising and trying to get that done from that standpoint. But what's really cool, I always tell people we don't need to have the biggest house in the neighborhood with respect to facilities, but we want to be in the neighborhood.
Right.
And Athletes Village puts us in the neighborhood with our peers in the Big Ten. I heard the other day it's been 30 years since we've made any updates to our football practice facilities, where every other Big Ten institution has done that.
Right.
So now we're doing that. Our men's and women's basketball programs have never had a training facility. Now they have a dedicated training facility. You talk about a training table for all student athletes. The academic center, we're going from 8 tutor rooms to 34 tutor rooms. So it's going to have a huge impact on our program, and I think our fans will see the benefits down the road.
Well, and everybody thinks football and basketball and the quote-unquote revenues, but you've got over 700 student athletes here. And the interesting part is it does seem like there's an emphasis nationwide to beef up that academic side of it, to beef up the training table part of it. With Land O'Lakes and the Lindalls, you've been able to do all that.
Yeah, I truly feel that Minnesota's a trendsetter here. The NCAA spent a lot of time the last 2 or 3 years on the well-being of our student athletes. And I think if you look at what Minnesota's done, we have such a great tradition of a broad-based program. And we do support all 25 programs, all 750 student athletes. And we clearly we need football, men's basketball, men's hockey, women's basketball, women's hockey to compete at a high level. But we do want to make sure we have a broad-based program, and Athletes Village signifies that commitment to all 25 sports.
It's a Give to the Max Day this Thursday. There'll be a special Facebook Live show this Thursday. Richard Pitino is very excited to join me, as you can imagine.
Yes.
Richard will have a few things to say. We're also going to talk to some other student athletes and perhaps some donors as well. But Give to the Max Day, everybody's heard of it. This Thursday for the Gophers, they're offering double Gopher score points if you make donations. There's all kinds of info at gophersports.com. But how important is just Give to the Max Day generally for you guys here?
It's incredibly important. I tell people all the time, I have the best job in America. I'm in the business of dreams. I get to be around student athletes who dreamed about attending a world-class institution like Minnesota. They dreamt about competing in the Big Ten or the WCHA on the women's hockey side. And when you invest in our program, when you give money to our institution, you're helping to fund those dreams, and you're helping our 750 student athletes reach a goal they have of getting a degree and competing at a high level.
Last question for Mark Coyle, the athletic director. If I would have chatted with you a year ago on the Facebook Live show, just how much more of a broader sense of how everything operates here, how much more grounded are your feet, I would say, from a year ago at this time to where you are now?
A lot more grounded. I can't tell you Justin, we have such great staff here. You know, I'd like to remind people we have 275 full-time staff that are working so hard to make it a great experience for our student athletes, for our coaches, and for our fans who buy tickets to our events. And I'm just so grateful for how they welcomed me and my family, how our fans have welcomed us. And again, I feel like we're on solid ground now. We always have to continue to improve and get better, but again, feel a lot better where we're at today than we were a year ago.
Do you have it on your office like a counter for when the new building's open? I mean, when do you have to have your boxes packed and moved across? Do we know yet?
Well, we're actually going to be staying where we're at.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to stay where we're at.
You should have worked that in. Get a new office as part of the deal.
It's more important that we take care of our student athletes and coaches.
Good answer.
So our student athletes and coaches will move in the new facility. Our administrators will stay where we're currently at.
You have a nice office, so that's fair. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's the athletic director, Mark Coyle, here on Ski-U-Mah Weekly. Reminder, Give to the Max Day is this Thursday. We'll be back here on the Gopher Facebook page to talk about that. Richard Pitino will join us. All the info is on gophersports.com. A couple other reminders, 11 o'clock kick for the football team this Saturday. We just got word that the Wisconsin kick for the final game at TCF Bank Stadium will be either 2:30 or 2:45, so we'll get that locked in maybe next week, and we hope you'll join us next week on Ski-U-Mah Weekly, brought to you by the Minnesota Lottery. We thank Kimberly for her question regarding the Hamilton song. PJ Fleck promises he will listen to that song next time you play it. For all of us here at Gopher Digital Productions, we appreciate it. We'll see you next week.